Welcome to Boston Real Estate Times. Our guest today is Garry Holmes. He is the president of R.W. Holmes Commercial Real Estate. We are going to talk to him today about conversion, office to multifamily, office to housing, retail to whatever. And he had a 360-degree view and perspective on Greater Boston commercial real estate. We are going to tap into his wisdom and what his crystal ball says about upcoming glut in the office market, that's what I call it, and also how to deal with that. Garry, welcome to our show, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Excellent. So where should we start? My idea is that we are seeing a lot of reports which are saying that very few people want to return to work, especially after the COVID. So which also means that there's a lot of space is going to be empty. How to deal with that?
Certainly, the hybrid workplace is not going away anytime soon, if at all. And right now, we have a situation, and there's been plenty that has been written about it in terms of the Class A product attracting the most attention right now. The employers want their employees back to work. As a result, what's really suffering is the older Class B office product that's out there. And that doesn't matter if you're in Boston, LA, or anywhere else. Essentially across the country, we're going to have, I would say, anywhere from 20 to 25% of the office inventory across this country is going to need to be repurposed.
Okay. Now, one thing you interestingly mentioned about Class A properties. So there is still demand for them. They may be okay compared to Class B and C.
Absolutely. And it's all about retention, getting your employees back to work. And those Class A buildings that have all the amenities is what employers feel has the best chance of getting everyone back in the office and collaborating.
So in this context, actually, just last week, we did an article about Don Shaparo Company, investing $100 million in International Place. And the first question came to me when everybody is writing obituary of office buildings in downtowns, why he's going to spend $100 million on to improve the International Place in Boston.
If you want to be, the leader of the pack, which International Place always was, you have to keep up with all the new development that's happening. So many of the buildings out there are being refurbished and upgraded. So unfortunately, right now, it's a necessary evil because the activity that is in the market, unfortunately, is in the Class A product.
Okay. So now talk to us a little bit about the space which is going to be on the market, extra space which people are not going to use. What should be done with that space?
Well, what it really needs, as I mentioned, repurposed. The challenge, though, is it's really municipalities aren't feeling the pain right now. So as soon as you give it another year or two, and the owners of those properties that have substantial vacancy are filing for abatements, that's going to be a major tax impact on these municipalities. So at some point, it's not just the developers' problem. It's not just the lenders' problem. It is an issue for all these towns and cities right now.
And you have, R.W. Holmes is very well known for his strength in the marketplace as far as the suburbs are concerned. And so tell us a little bit more, give us more insight about these smaller towns, the smaller core markets and commercial real estate. Is it really, you think, they're going to have that big impact on those municipalities and cities and towns?
Tremendous impact. It's just, overwhelming the amount of revenue that comes from these office buildings with very little services, very, very little demand in these communities. And right now, when you look at them, what can you do with them?
So what is happening? Like, we also see reports that the manufacturing industrial markets are really getting high there, high demand. Life sciences market, they're trying to expand around the country. Do you think that will not have any significant impact as compared with the office?
Not at all. I think the industrial market is here to stay. What has happened with e-commerce is not going away, and that is such a driver for any of the industrial buildings out there. The real issue, as we mentioned, is really the office. In the retail sector, I think a lot of the retailers have figured out that having some sort of brick and mortar presence really pays off. And I think a great example of if 2 years ago you drove through downtown Wellesley or drove down Route 9 through Natick, Framingham, the amount of vacancy was overwhelming. Now you go into Wellesley, the number of new stores that are there, new restaurants, Lululemon opening up, same through Natick and Framingham. So granted, those footprints are much smaller than they would have had before, but retail's making a comeback. As for the office market, I don't see any improvement. And the big issue now is those leases start to burn off in the next couple of years. You're going to see a lot more companies cutting back and readjusting their space.
So if I'm a tenant in this market, what should I be thinking about in this context?
In this context, I think the biggest challenge right now is to try to understand how does the hybrid model work? How should your office look? Is it a situation that you really can have what's referred to as benching with multiple people lined up? With the threat of COVID not going away anytime soon, do people really want to come in and live and be on top of one another? So really trying to understand how the office of the future should look is the biggest challenge for companies right now.
And what about the landlords? What should be there? What they should be thinking?
The landlords, the challenge today, which is written about day in, day out, is the cost of construction. So the biggest challenge is they need to fill these spaces. But if you're sitting there and you're getting rents at $50 a square foot, but it's costing $85 a square foot to retrofit the space for the next tenant, it's a real challenge. And it's also at the point where you have the tenants now, some of them looking for shorter term leases, and the landlords, the only way that they can make sense of these deals is to have much longer term leases so they can amortize those improvements over the term of the lease.
Now, let us talk about the suburban office market versus the downtown, urban market like Boston and Cambridge. And there has been a lot of talk, actually, the new governor, Healy also is supporting this conversion from office buildings to residential and housing. Also, the mayor of Boston, new mayor, is also support. There's a lot of excitement going on that front. What is your take on that concept of conversion to the housing in downtown and versus suburbs?
Quite simply, it's a much easier process in the suburbs. And reason being is a lot of the towers that are downtown, very tall, very narrow footprints. And as a result, it makes it a challenge to subdivide a lot of those buildings into multifamily. Never mind, a lot of those buildings, you're looking out your window and 15 feet away, you're looking at, another brick building right on top of you. In the suburbs, much larger footprints. It makes it so much easier to make very efficient multifamily suites out of those. And that's really the big difference.
Okay. What about when you talk about the conversion and the future looking for the next 4 or 5 years, how it is going to impact? I think off the camera you had mentioned once that the buildings which are located near T stations or subways, when you look from the conversion point of view, they may be much better because they're closer by. So put us, some sort of, give us some idea about those buildings near the transportation centers and T stations and conversion to multifamily and housing versus which are far away from these stations or subways.
Great question. And it's going to have such a pronounced impact throughout the Commonwealth, which is housing choice. That is one of Governor Baker's pet projects that passed before he left office.
Yeah.
And essentially what it's doing is any community within an MBTA station has to create zoning by right to allow multifamily. And it's not directly adjacent. It has to be within a half a mile within the MBTA station. So you have all the towns and cities right now have their preliminary plans that are due to the state. And this zoning has to be in place by the end of next year.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a very
end of 2024.
Yes.
Okay.
Very, very tight time frame. But really what it's doing, to your point, is it's giving these office buildings sort of a second bite at the apple.
Mm-hmm.
So those that were able, whether you were in the city or in the suburbs, to convert to biotech, it gave a great opportunity to repurpose those buildings. Unfortunately, a lot of these Class B office buildings that are older don't have the ceiling heights, don't have the proper infrastructure. Now they're getting a second chance to repurpose those buildings. And that's going to really have and open up phenomenal opportunities for those office buildings that are within the MBTA that now can truly be repositioned. And the housing choice, again, very little site plan review. This has to be allowed by right. It's putting a lot of pressure on these towns and cities to get a plan in place very, very quickly. And it's just a phenomenal topic. And I'm fortunate. I learned a lot from Jay Doherty at Cabot and Forbes, who's sort of at the forefront of this right now.
I had not heard of this. Is the first time I heard it from you, this concept.
Yep.
And I think it does give some sort of optimism and hope, especially in the landlords who are in that particular area and zone.
Tremendous hope. It's always been a challenge with the housing, whether you're in the city, whether you're in the suburbs. I think so many of the towns and municipalities look at the apartments and condos as a negative. And unfortunately, housing is directly tied in with the office market. If you saw pre-pandemic, there was not the adequate housing in the suburbs to really attract the quality employees that these employers were looking for. So pre-pandemic, it was amazing how many companies that you saw moving into the city, trying to find where more of the talent was. At this point, it doesn't matter if you're in Waltham or Wellesley or Lexington, having some brand new, fresh, quality apartments and condos is going to do wonders to retain the quality companies in your community.
Okay, excellent. Again, it has been a really pleasure to talk about this topic, but before I let you go, I have some spontaneous questions, and I will just say a few words and you have to just, whatever comes to your mind.
Okay.
Okay. So let's first start with the office conversion concept. What do you think?
Office conversion concept, like it or not, it has to happen. There's too many buildings that need to be repurposed and, figure out a way for these landlords to be able to pay their bills.
Life sciences boom.
Life sciences is not going away. It's not so much a boom now, but it is an industry of the future, not going away.
Manufacturing in Massachusetts.
Manufacturing in Massachusetts and across the country making a big comeback. Exciting to see.
What about lab buildings? There have been a lot of buildings coming up in Boston on the spec in lab and life sciences related. What is going to do? You think they will fill up or?
They are absolutely going to fill up. There's going to be pain when you are in the VC business and you fund 10 deals. You don't expect all 10 of those deals to pay off handsomely. So I expect a number of those spaces to turn over. On the flip side, if any VC expects 4 out of 10 deals to basically pan out, I think that those 4 that do pan out are going to be absorbing in the future years those companies that unfortunately didn't make it.
Suburban office market.
Picking up a lot of momentum, and we're seeing the opposite now post-pandemic, that you are seeing some cities that, companies in the cities that are opening up offices in the suburbs. So I'm a fan of suburban office right now.
And Cambridge and downtown Boston.
There's just too much talent there for those to not be a huge market and a major market in the country.
Multifamily.
Housing choice might be a little too drastic, too quick, but very much needed. And I think at the end of the day, people are going to be shocked what that's going to do to keep a lot of the talent that's graduating in Massachusetts.
Now, some people have written obituary of retail in the context of, people doing online shopping and all this stuff. What do you think of real estate retail market?
If you asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said stay away from retail. Now, I am a fan of retail. I think the amount of retail space, has to be designed so it can subdivide down. The days of the real big boxes, I think, are going away. But retail is back, but it's certainly better have that fun recreational component with it.
If I'm a landlord today in the marketplace, I know you have a lot of clients who are
buy low and sell high.
Buy low and sell high.
Yes.
It's going to be a challenge, right? But we'll say. What about if you are a tenant in the marketplace?
I don't care what sector you're in. Too many tenants do not plan accordingly. So the process takes much longer than expected. There's still issues with supply chain, and you never want to rush a major decision. So spend more time, focus, and start the process earlier.
And the last one for the best. In Boston market for the last, even you go to 15, 20 years, every major commercial brokerage firm has been sold, bought, invested, sold here. Now here, I think the R.W. Holmes is the only brokerage firm I know for the last 45 years has stayed on its own feet and growing fast. What is the secret of R.W. Holmes?
Well, we're flattered, and fortunately over the years we have been approached. But at the end of the day, just quality people. Our employees are just phenomenal. I know everyone says that, but when we have average person that's been working with us for over 25 years, that's pretty special, and it's hard to give that up.
Excellent. Garry, thank you so much. And
Thank you.
We'll get back to it in a couple of years and recheck all these facts.
Perfect.
Okay.